Alright, so good to be back. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Setson. Today, I want to demystify the concept of ORMs. To be specific, I'm going to be using this Sequelize version 6, which is an object relational mapping. This is a NodeJS ORM tool for specific databases. These are relational databases, by the way, Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, etc. But before I jump into the actual details of Sequelize version 6, we need to answer the question, what is an ORM? Object relational mapping is a technique used to create a bridge between OOP, which is object-oriented programming, and relational databases. There are two important concepts mentioned here. One is object-oriented programming, and another one is relational databases. How does this ORM works? So it maps this class in your code to tables in a relational database. Each class will correspond to a table. So we're trying to find an easier way to communicate with our database. We need NodeJS installed on our computer. So if you don't have NodeJS, you can just go to this search engine right here. I'm going to search for NodeJS, nodejs.org. Go to this website right here. You can download the long-term supported version right here. Go ahead and run the installation. It's quite easy and straightforward. After the installation, you're supposed to open your terminal or your command prompt. I'm on Windows, by the way. After you finish the installation, you want to confirm whether it has been successfully installed by running this command here, node version. I have version 22.14. You should see some kind of a version here. We're going to start by creating our project. I'll do this on my desktop, but you can do it anywhere on your computer. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name this project tutorial _ Sequelize. You can name it whatever you want. You want to open this in a text editor of our choice. I'll recommend Visual Studio Code, but any other text editor will do. I'm going to right click this, open in terminal, code space dot, which means open this folder in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to hit enter. We have opened our project in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to close this welcome right here. We need to initialize a node project. To initialize a node project, I'm going to open the built-in terminal for Visual Studio Code so I can go to here, these three dots, terminal, new terminal. I could also come up here on these icons and click on that, or I can press Ctrl J or Command J to create a Node.js project. We use npm. We say npm init to initialize a new project. And I'll pass in a -y flag. What this -y flag does is I'm actually saying yes to all the questions that are asked when you are creating a new project. And so let me hit enter. And now we have our package.json right here. So our package.json, quite important, it provides the metadata of our application that we're creating here. It's where also you have your dependencies for this particular project. After we create this file right here, now is the time to install our dependencies. For us to install our dependencies, I'll go to the documentation. By the way, you can search for this documentation by just writing Sequelize in the browser, and then you go to this link here, sequelize.org, and then it will take you to this page here. You want to go to getting started here. Click on that. And then it will open this right here. Our first dependency for the project is this Sequelize right here. So we're going to copy this, go to our project, open that terminal again. Let me clear this. I'm just going to paste the npm install save Sequelize, and then let's hit enter and run this installation. There are two files that have been created. One is the node modules. We are not going to be touching anything in this file. And then we have this package -lock.json, which locks your dependencies. If you check in our package.json, now we have this dependencies attribute, which has got Sequelize because we've just installed Sequelize, and so it lists those dependencies in here. We need to install the driver for your database. In our case, we're going to use SQLite 3. I'll just copy this command right here. If you're using any other database, you can copy in one of these commands. Back in my terminal, clear this. I'm going to paste npm install save SQLite, and then I'll hit enter. You can see it's done. If we go back to our package.json, you should be able to see again a second dependency has been installed right here on the dependencies. After we are done with the dependencies, we now need to connect to our database. So to connect to the database, you must create a Sequelize instance. We can do this by passing the connection parameters separately to the Sequelize constructor, or by passing a single connection URI. You can see here the examples here. In the package.json, our main is going to be index.js, which is going to be the entry into our application. So I'm going to create a file called index.js, but you can call this file whatever you want. Inside our project here, you want to create a file called index.js. So the first thing is we're going to const, and then we destructure, and then Sequelize capital letter S, Sequelize. We're going to require in quotation marks Sequelize. By the way, this Sequelize is one of our dependencies, so we are using it. We are accessing it inside these node modules right here. After we do this, it specifies that we create a new instance of that Sequelize. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say const. By the way, you can name this whatever you want, but we're going to Sequelize. Then we use the new keyword, and then we use this object that we imported up here. I'm going to paste that and then put parentheses here. This takes in arguments. So we pass in an object with dialect and storage. So that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to pass in an object with curly brackets. And then the first attribute to this object is going to be a dialect. And then we can specify in quotation marks. You can see here I have options right here. DB2, Maria DB, MS SQL, MySQL. I'm using SQLite. And then put a comma because it's an object. And then we specify the storage. This is the actual database that you're going to be creating. If you're using SQLite, we are creating in our computers. I'm going to create a database called db.SQLite. It has to have this .SQLite extension, but you can name this whatever you want. I just prefer to call it db. In case you want to store it in a different location, you have to specify the location here. But in our case, we have to store it in the same folder as this index.js. That's what we specified here. After we do that, we can then test our connection right here. You can see here it says testing the connection. To test the connection, we have to call this authenticate. So I'm going to copy this. But of course, you can see there's an await here, which means it's asynchronous. So we have to create a function, async function. Then the function is going to be called connect. For you to use this await, you have to have async. I'm going to use this syntax right here, async await. If we run this, we're supposed to have this file here created in this directory right here. So let me clear down here. The way we run this, of course, we use node to run this index.js. So I can use node index.js. Traditionally, JavaScript only runs in the browser. Somebody had to create this environment so that we can run JavaScript outside of the browser. So that's why we had to install Node.js. With that, let me hit enter. And nothing seemed to have happened. I don't know why. Let me see. Nothing has happened because we did not call this function right here. So I need to call this function down here. So connect, capital letter connect. And then this function could be named anything. Let me change it to run db. Run db. Let me just call it run db. So let me save this again. And now we're calling this function, right? And so let me run this again. You can see here it says connection has been established successfully. We have successfully created our DB, which we can see up here. Congratulations, you created your first database. And so you can see this db.SQLite. We have successfully created our database. By the way, I have extensions. I'm using Visual Studio Code. So if you go to extensions, search for SQLite Viewer. Install this SQLite Viewer. This is going to help you to view your database right here. So I can view this database by double clicking, and you can see for now there are no tables in this database. It's just empty. And so we are ready to create some tables in this database. That's how we store information in a relational database. I need to specify something here. This is the instance that we're using down here. We're calling this Sequelize. We could have named this DB or database. And down here, when we authenticate, we call database.authenticate. So it doesn't matter what name you call this thing right here, this instance of Sequelize here.